Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So for this Saturday's album review, I'm reviewing the 6th studio album from the Australian progressive metal band Caligula's Horse. This is their release Charcoal Grace, which came out yesterday on the 26th of January via Inside Out Music. The album is 9 tracks and just over an hour in length. In Charcoal Grace, you've got Jim Gray on the vocals, Sam Vallon on lead guitar, Josh Griffin on the drums, and Dale Prince on the bass. And this is a very accomplished progressive metal album. And, you know, it has lots of those modern progressive metal elements that you might expect from a band like this, I guess. But it never feels overindulgent for me. It always feels like everything they do in the music and the choices they make on this album serve the songs and serve the whole album as well. And I really like the title of this album, Charcoal Grace, which I think perfectly suits both the beauty and the sadness that this album brings along with it. In fact, the band themselves say the title is the grim allure and strange beauty in stillness, silence and loss. Apparently this album was somewhat inspired by the pandemic times and the band's experiences during those. And, you know, I certainly think it's got that mood and does achieve that juxtaposition really, really well. So I think that this is one of those albums that even on my first listen of this record, you can sometimes sense when you think something special is unraveling. You know, you just get a feeling for it. With a lot of prog albums, obviously they take multiple listens to really get used to and to really get underneath and to suddenly for all those musical changes to actually click and for you to really realise, oh, that's amazing what they're doing. But even on my first listen of this one, I could just sense this is going to be one of those albums I'm going to really like. And maybe it's because I have a natural inclination to enjoying prog music, whether it's prog metal, prog rock. But I just had a feeling with this album that it was going to be one of those albums that I'm going to be really loving and probably going to get a high score. But we'll come to that shortly. So let's go into the tracks on this album a little bit more. So you've got the 10-minute epic opener. I always think it's brave, even with prog albums, to start with a big epic track. And I think for the most part, this achieves what it should, this track, in being an epic. Starts soft and ends soft with some really interesting developments in the middle of the song. And enjoy pretty much all the changes in this track. And like I say, it sort of is a good track to open the album with, even though it's a 10-minute song. I think it opens the album really well. I love Gollum though, because I really like that gives the album a bit of straightforward impetus. Given that this is quite a complex and layered album, I like how Gollum is one of the tracks which is a bit more sort of stampy, punchy, and is going to catch on to you a bit quicker than anything else on the album, because it's got this memorable sort of really genty and punchy guitar riff in it that you're going to think, oh yeah, that's really cool, pretty quickly. And it's good to have that, I think, as a second track, because after the 10-minute epic, it just gives the album something to grab onto a bit more, even in your early listens, that it's going to be a point in the album you're going to remember and bring you back for those additional listens. The 4-part Charcoal Grace song is also really fantastic. You've got Pray, A World Without, Vigil, and Give Me Hell. And all of those songs have different moments in that I really enjoy. I mean, I particularly like Vigil, which is actually a short track. Reminds me a bit of the sort of quiet contemplative style you might get on an album like Ghost Reveries by Opeth. And Give Me Hell, I think, is maybe my favourite so far on this album, but that could change with this 4-part epic. And I just really like the way, I think I enjoy the sort of the vocal moments in that particular song, and that they cling on to me a bit as well, as I say, with this album so far. Now, perhaps my favourite part of this album at this point for the entire thing is the 12-minute epic album closer. You know, you get a great album opener for this record and you get a fantastic album closer. I'm somebody who really believes in the importance of finishing an album well, particularly prog albums, and this album is one of those that really does that with this particular song. And I also think it's somewhat a little bit like the opening song as well, but this track brings with it a bit more momentum in its build-ups and its climax. Its climax is delivering a well-deserving climax for the whole album, as opposed to just this song as well. I think it works as a sort of echoing of some of the earlier themes and motifs from what you get earlier on the album. So all in all, this is a really, really excellent, accomplished progressive metal album from a band who sound very comfortable working together, and the production on this album is also pretty top-notch. I'm left with no choice but to give this one my first 9 out of 10 of 2024. And it's interesting, I tend to get early in the year, every year I think for maybe the last 3 years, there's been a progressive metal release, I'm sure, where I've given a very high score. So it seems like early in the year is the sort of prog metal time. I don't know. That's probably just me and the fact that, I seem to identify a prog metal band that I like, and then I get a prog metal album I really like. But here's the case. This is a 9 out of 10. Do go and check this one out. Particularly if you love prog, you're gonna really dig this. It is quite moody. It does take a little bit of time maybe to dig into all the layers and everything, but it's well worth it. I think it's a rewarding experience. And yeah, that's it for this particular review. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, do drop a like and a sub. This channel is more than just music, actually. I do talk a lot about films, particularly horror, and I also do sometimes touch on fantasy stuff as well. So if any of that's your thing, why not drop a like and a sub? Otherwise, from me, until next time, have great weekends, and bye for now.